Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are taking a single concentrated source, a really powerful work of literary art, and putting it under the microscope. We are diving deep into Weerathunga W poem, The Ballad of the Bloody Ballet.
Yes, and it's an essential piece, I think, for anyone trying to grasp the relationship between power, public perception, and this sort of perpetual tragedy. This poem is much more than just a description, however vivid, of violence. It's really quite a sophisticated analysis.
Of how political suffering gets, manufactured? Dressed up?
Exactly. Manufactured, aestheticized, and then, successfully sold to the public, sold as culture or maybe necessary drama.
So that's our mission today, to unpack that central, really jarring metaphor of the ballet. How elegance, how grace is used to mask something utterly brutal. We'll look at the, uncomfortable role of the audience, the voters who keep this cycle going, and then finally get into that chilling, devastating irony at the end.
Nimal sets the tone immediately. The poem opens with this image. In the grand hall of silence, it suggests reverence, maybe a national space, something important.
But then it hits you.
Instantly undercut, by the performance aesthetic. Ribbons of red. Even before anything happens, blood isn't an accident here, it's decoration. Part of the stage design.
That visual's the hook, absolutely. But what's so striking is how the poem immediately forces this. This cognitive dissonance on you, the reader. It's called the ballet beauty, discipline, but the substance is pure political tragedy. Okay, let's really unpack this ballet metaphor. How does Nimal actually use the imagery of elegance, the choreography, the maestro, the performers to hide, or maybe justify a political reality that's just brutal?
Well, he does it by completely flipping the role of aesthetics, doesn't he? In this ballet, the instruments of suffering are the instruments of music. Think about the soundscape he creates. The drums were bombs, the flutes were cries, the sounds of war, explosions, public grief. That's literally the score. That's what the dancers move to. And yet, they're still described as graceful, twirling through the wreckage they're making.
So the audience, the reader, is basically required to ignore the source of the sound, to hear screams and blasts, but just accept it as rhythm. That's asking a lot, a kind of willful ignorance.
It is, and it says so much about how society accepts this mechanism. And what's more, this tragedy isn't presented as random chaos. Oh no, it's highly controlled, institutionalized even. The poet stresses that. Each step rehearsed, each sorrow pre-dreamed.
Pre-dreamed. That suggests it's planned generations ahead.
Calculated suffering. The maestro, the figure in control, ensures the blood kept time. The violence is disciplined. For maximum effect, theatrical, political.
Okay, if it's so obviously pre-planned, so controlled, why isn't there immediate outrage? Is the poem saying complacency is just baked into the system? Or are people choosing to look away?
I think it suggests both, really. But the system itself makes outrage difficult. It immediately absorbs the victims, you see. It neutralizes the emotional impact of their loss by, reframing it, turning it into noble art, or maybe necessary sacrifice. This normalization of death is terrifying when you think about it.
And that's where that narrative mechanism really kicks in, isn't it?
Yeah.
The deaths don't stop the show, they become part of it. Set pieces. The first to fall was hailed as brave, instantly sanitized, celebrated, and then the second's tune became a stage. Their memory, their gravesite, just co-opted for the next act.
Exactly, and this reframing lets the whole thing be hailed as a cultural success. What a fine and cultured play. The price of the ticket, human life, is paid, and it's immediately converted into cultural capital. The audience feels like they saw something important, profound even.
They feel good supporting the system because they're taking part in high culture or supporting a noble national effort, even if it's bloody. It's captured in that line, that haunting line, pity hummed a national rhyme. Even basic human sympathy gets turned into this catchy, approved tune. Everyone hums along and it loses any critical power.
And the political actors themselves, the dancers, they perform their deception so lightly, they twirled through ruins, light on their feet. They seem unburdened by the destruction because, they're just performers. Following the script, their movements are lies. Each spin a trick, each bow a lie, all wrapped up nicely in appealing political language. Promises sweet and slogans neat.
Polished deception presented as essential art.
Precisely. But, all this controlled, brutal choreography depends on one crucial participant, the audience. We really have to talk about why they keep buying the tickets. Let's shift focus now to the public, the voters.
Yeah.
They're the ones who sustain this tragic cycle.
The poem shows their initial approval, right? Maybe it's superficial, but it's there. Voters clapped beneath the skies, not just in a theater, but out in the open, publicly sanctioning it, applauding the spectacle, even if they don't fully get the cost.
And that lack of grasp is central. Nimal really highlights the disconnect. While they're clapping, the reality of the cost is right there. Tears kept falling, none asked why. The grief is present, you can see the tears. But the critical questions, the demand for accountability, completely absent.
And importantly, the stage doesn't stay confined to that grand hall for long, does it?
Yeah.
The whole thing spills out.
Bleeds out, yeah, into the entire city structure. The political tragedy becomes part of everyday life. In town hall lanes, the orchestra boomed and bridges and buses became their rooms. The violence spreads, becomes a constant feature of civic life. And that normalization gets rewarded.
The public actually rewards the destruction itself. They cheer the outcome of the violence. Each blast a note, each flame a cheer. And this translates directly into political power, political longevity. That applause means the ballet earned another year. Their approval fuels the whole machine.
So the complicity comes from this willingness to be entertained by it all and then just quickly disengage. Forget about it. The public's involvement is temporary, easily satisfied. They go home feeling morally or politically involved, but it's thin. The crowd went home through smoke and prayer, still humming tunes of change and care.
They take the slogans, the easy tunes, but not the actual burden of the bloody reality.
And that temporary engagement is just devastating. It suggests the system is almost unbreakable.
They get a quick hit of catharsis, maybe, then life goes back to normal, ready for the cycle to repeat. So what does this mean long term?
It means it's just routine. The performance, no matter how bloody, is structurally necessary for the system to keep going. The part about the cyclical nature is maybe the most damning commentary. Now every decade brings the same ballet.
Oh, that line.
The cast may change, the script will stay, the faces might change, politicians, generals, whoever, but the core mechanism. Turning violence into a sanctioned public show, that stays fixed. The tragedy is cyclical, self-sustaining.
That sense of inevitability really sets up the final section perfectly. That awful clash between the relentless external praise and the internal silent suffering.
Yes, the external praise is used as that final, stark contrast to the victims. You have the critics representing maybe the intellectual or media class validating it all, calling the performance brave and deep, giving moral weight to the bloodshed, maybe excusing it as necessary for drama or politics or progress.
So the critics basically celebrate the sheer scale of the tragedy as if it's artistic genius, and the market agrees. Despite everyone knowing the human cost, the show business continues. Tickets sell, the seats are full. The public appetite for this kind of political theater is constant. That confirms its success.
And this relentless validation from outside is the perfect setup for the only real dissenting voice in the whole poem. And it's so quiet you could almost miss it, the whisper of the forgotten. The dead, they whisper, let us sleep.
Yeah, I always pause there too. It's so profound because it's so modest. They aren't asking for revenge. Not even justice, really, or revolution. Just rest. Relief from the exhaustion of being used over and over as props in this endless tragedy.
It really highlights that the whole ballet mechanism operates completely above or maybe beyond the needs or even the dignity of the people it consumes. Their suffering is irrelevant to the show's success. In fact, their suffering is its substance.
Which brings us to that final, absolutely bone-chilling line. Deconstructing it, the show goes on, how wonderful. It's just acidic. A summary of the whole political culture being described.
That line really captures the ultimate irony, doesn't it? The performance is wonderful precisely because it continues. It's successful because everyone, the public, the critics, the system itself accepts the bloodshed. Not as failure, but as an essential, maybe even praiseworthy part of the ongoing drama. The tragedy makes profit, gets applause, creates power, and therefore, it's marvelous.
It's such a masterful use of language to expose these systems of control. We've seen Nimal use the elegance of ballet to show the brutal mechanics of political violence. How voters are central through their sort of detached applause. And that profound, cold irony of the poem's successful, never-ending conclusion.
And if we go back to that idea of passive acceptance, pity hummed a national rhyme. It's a powerful warning, I think. If we let our deepest human responses, like pity, just become another culturally approved, predictable tune, we lose something vital, our critical faculty. We lose the ability to see the performance for the political machine it actually is.
That's a truly challenging thought, especially today. navigating the constant stream of political spectacle. The whole poem really demands that you question your own role as a spectator. When we consume political talk or news about national tragedies, how often are we really questioning the cost, the price of keeping the lights on and the music playing? Or are we just applauding the polished performance, something for you to mull over as you step back from the